The red sands of Vihor did not welcome human feet. They hissed under each step like angry vipers, resentful that a Terran, asterisk especially a limping one, dared to stain their surface with sweat and defiance. I stepped into the great arena like a man entering his own funeral. The two suns above, lazy bastards that they were, poured down enough heat to roast a camel mid-stride, and I wasn't entirely sure I still had all my skin. I adjusted the bandage at my side, half mummified in faded medical mesh, and tried not to stagger too much. The crowd deserved a good show after all, and what a crowd. They filled the tiered crystal seats like exotic birds, all feathers and malice, their laughter ringing like broken glass in a thunderstorm. Nobles of the Enhari Dominion, each more arrogant than the last, draped in shimmering armor that probably cost more than a Terran warship. They sipped iridescent drinks from floating goblets and placed bets via thought-linked neural webs that pulsed in the air around their heads. Some of them didn't even look at me. They were already calculating what to spend their winnings on. One noble snorted and said, "I give the human 3 minutes, 5 if he hides behind his shield and cries." I didn't have a shield. What I did have was a punctured lung, a dislocated shoulder, and a severe case of why the hell did I sign up for this? Then there was her, Princess Kalith of the Enhari, the jewel of the Dominion, their starlit heir, the prize wrapped in sarcasm and subtle menace. She sat on a throne made of shifting plasma, her white hair floating like it had no business obeying gravity. Her skin was pale, almost translucent like moonlight on snow. And those ears, long, elegant, twitching slightly with every scream from the stands, made her look more like a fantasy bard than an alien warlord's daughter. She saw me. Not glanced, saw, head tilted, eyes narrowed like she was examining a particularly confusing mushroom. One of the nobles leaned toward her and said something. She laughed. It was a high, sharp sound, like glass wind chimes in a breeze full of knives. "Great," I muttered under my breath. "The girl I'm apparently fighting for thinks I'm a punchline." A massive gong thundered across the arena, shaking the sand underfoot and announcing the start of the match. A gate opened across the ring, gears grinding with all the subtlety of a drunk demolition crew. From the shadows emerged my opponent. Drothar the Many-Limbed. I'd heard of him, everyone had. 7 feet tall, 6 arms, no neck, possibly allergic to mercy. His eyes glowed orange and his breathing apparatus hissed like a nest of serpents. He carried dual plasma blades in 2 hands, a serrated whip in another, and clenched a massive kinetic hammer between his lower elbows like a toddler gripping his favorite toy, with murderous intent. I waved weakly. "Hi. Just so we're clear, I don't have dental insurance." Drothar didn't respond. He roared. I winced. "Okay, no on the insurance, then." The arena roared with approval. Apparently they liked their executions interactive. I had one plan. Well, calling it a asterisk plan might be generous. It was more like a collection of desperate instincts wrapped in a tortilla of bad decisions. My exosuit, jury-rigged and decades out of date, clicked and groaned with every motion. I tapped a command into my gauntlet. A tiny burst of static confirmed that the jump jets were still offline. Fantastic. Drothar lunged. I rolled sideways, mostly intentionally, dodging a hammer blow that would have turned my ribcage into fine Terran soup. The sand exploded where I just stood. I scrambled to my feet, coughed, and regretted being born. "Wow," I wheezed. "You hit like my mother. She was a demolition bot, by the way." That got a few laughs. Even Kalith arched a single white brow. Drothar didn't seem to appreciate my sense of humor. He swung again, this time with the whip. I ducked under it, barely, and jabbed my knuckles into the nerve cluster near his 3rd shoulder joint. It was a risky move. Enhari anatomy was weird and not well documented, but it worked. His arm spasmed, the whip flicking uselessly to the side. "Hit the nerve, huh?" I grinned. "Bet that's the last time you skip anatomy class." He responded by slamming his hammer into the sand again. My grin disappeared. We circled. He was stronger, faster, and definitely not in danger of passing out from blood loss. But I had one advantage. I'd fought Enhari in the trenches of IO. I knew they overcommitted. They were prideful, predictable, especially when they thought they'd already won. "Okay, Eli," I muttered. "You've survived worse. Remember that time on Tarsai's Prime with the assassin vines? At least this guy doesn't photosynthesize." I dodged another blow, kicked sand into his face, temporarily blinding 2 of his eyes, and launched myself forward. I didn't aim for a kill strike. That would have been suicide. I hit his leg hard. His balance wobbled. I drove a knee into his solar plexus. He howled. The crowd went asterisk silent. Then they started yelling, furious, confused. Some were laughing, some demanding a rematch, others reevaluating their life choices. Kalith was standing now, leaning slightly over the rail. Her ears twitched once and her lips curled into something dangerously close to delight. "You're not supposed to be this interesting," I imagined her saying. Drothar tried to rise. I slammed my boot into his helmet and didn't wait for applause. He hit the sand like a felled tree, groaning but unconscious. I stood over him, heaving. Every inch of me screamed. My lungs were burning, my shoulder was definitely more dislocated than before, and my vision had started showing little cartoon birds. Pretty sure that wasn't part of the arena tech. I raised one hand. Not in victory exactly, more like asterisk please don't shoot me, I'm too exhausted to die properly. The crowd was in chaos. Nobles shouting, fights breaking out over bets. One tried to jump the barrier and was zapped by a security drone with impeccable comic timing. And Kalith, she was clapping, slowly, not mockingly, genuinely. For the first time since I limped onto this forsaken battlefield, I wondered if I hadn't just survived the fight, but started asterisk something far more dangerous. And probably much more embarrassing. The medbay aboard the Enhari carrier was not designed with humans in mind. The table was too long, the lights too bright, and the diagnostic scanner kept trying to sedate my left kneecap, apparently convinced it was a separate organism rebelling against my skeletal hierarchy. The attending medic, a four-eyed being named Varnex, muttered to himself in tones that suggested either deep concentration or the kind of existential despair one reserves for taxes and opera. "I'd appreciate it," I croaked, "if you didn't look so offended by my internal organs. I'm doing my best here." Varnex didn't respond, unless you count a flat mechanical hiss and a series of taps on his datapad. The alien equivalent of a middle finger, I assumed. 3 fractured ribs, a bruised lung, 2 cracked fingers, and what the scanner politely labeled mild cranial destabilization. In human terms, that meant, don't sneeze too hard or your brain might slip sideways. Still, I was alive. And that fact alone seemed to be causing an incredible amount of distress across the upper echelons of Enhari society. From the overhead speakers, a voice like syrup and sandpaper rang out. "Captain Eli Mercer, you are summoned for formal review in the Hall of Verdicts. Clean yourself." "Charming," I muttered. "No time for a nap or emotional healing, I see." I slid off the medable, groaning like a haunted accordion. Varnex handed me a sleek black uniform, Enhari standard issue, stitched with cooling fibers and programmed to self-adjust to physiology. It itched in all the wrong places and automatically tightened when I tried to slouch. "Note to self," I said aloud. "Invent new line of breathable battleware, market to gladiators and emotionally repressed soldiers." Varnex hissed again. I gave him a salute I hoped was both respectful and mildly sarcastic, then limped out into the corridors. The Hall of Verdicts was a misnomer if ever there was one. It wasn't a hall. It was a floating obelisk suspended in a gravitational cradle above the city's central fusion coil, surrounded by an honor guard of psychic lizards in ceremonial cloaks. The Enhari didn't do anything halfway, including passive-aggressive intimidation. As I was escorted in, 2 guards, 1 floating drone that beeped every time I inhaled incorrectly, I spotted the nobles again. Same smug expressions. Same ridiculous hairdos that defied physics and possibly ethics. They glared down at me from their levitating thrones, seated in a spiral pattern around the central platform like bored demigods. And at the highest ring, flanked by 2 silent advisors in robes made of woven starlight, sat Princess Kalith. She looked exactly the same and completely different. Her silver hair was braided back now, exposing more of those long, twitching ears. Her robes shimmered between shades of midnight and copper, shifting with every breath of artificial wind. But it wasn't the outfit. It was her eyes, sharp, focused, curious in a way that bordered on dangerous. She was interested in me. This could only end in several flavors of disaster. The Prime Arbiter, a creature with no mouth and far too many fingers, raised a hand. The crowd hushed. "Captain Eli Mercer," he boomed in a voice that rattled my fillings, "you have completed your first challenge in the arena of proving. Against odds of 4,000 to 1, you defeated Drothar the Many-Limbed." There was a pause, then a chorus of reluctant claps, like a birthday party no one wanted to attend. "And in doing so," the Arbiter continued, "you have embarrassed half the ruling council, cost this dominion over 11 million units in lost wagers, and," he looked up, won the attention of the royal family. I blinked. I'd apologize, but the last time I did that I got punched by a vending machine. A few nobles chuckled. One of them looked like he wanted to hurl a chair. Calith, to my horror, smiled. Not the polite diplomatic smile she wore for political dinners and executions, but a real one, lopsided, involuntary, with the tiniest dimple on her left cheek. The arbiter ignored it. You will face another trial in 3 solar days. Rest, prepare, and refrain from making further mockery of our traditions. I make no promises, I said cheerfully. 3 hours later, I was in my temporary quarters, a sleek sterile cube with no windows and far too many automated voice assistants. One of them greeted me in Enhari. Greetings, honored opponent of fate. Please select your scent preference, industrial lemon, scorched ozone, or unscented despair. Lemon, I muttered, always lemon. A gust of yellow mist sprayed from the ceiling. I collapsed onto the single slab of furniture masquerading as a bed. My ribs protested, my brain throbbed, and yet all I could think about was Calith's smile. Not the beauty of it, though she was, objectively speaking, a walking violation of the Geneva Convention on Unfair Attractiveness, but the asterisk fact of it. Why had she smiled? Why did she keep looking at me like I was a half-solved riddle? And why had her last glance, before the guards dragged me out, been so carefully unreadable? The next morning, I awoke to the sound of humming. Not artificial hum, not machinery, human-style humming, which was weird because I was very alone until I was. The wall shimmered, not opened, shimmered like heat on asphalt. And through it stepped Calith herself, holding what appeared to be a basket of glowing fruit and a mug of steaming liquid. I sat bolt upright. Either I'm concussed, or this is an extremely elaborate prank. Calith raised an eyebrow. I assure you, Captain, I rarely bring breakfast to my hallucinations. Okay, I said, still might be a prank. She crossed the room, set the tray on the table, and sat with an elegance that made me feel like an uncooked vegetable in a tuxedo. The fruit sparkled, the mug smelled like roasted cinnamon and danger. You're not supposed to be here, I managed. I overruled security protocols, she replied. Also, I bribed the drone with rare Earth memes. Apparently, your cultures, cat fails, are highly prized among our surveillance AIs. I believe that. She picked up a blue orb of fruit and tossed it to me. I caught it barely. Eat, she said. It might kill you, but statistically it probably won't. Comforting. I bit into the fruit. It fizzed on my tongue like soda. My eyebrows tried to leap off my face. That's unexpectedly good. I'm told it tastes like nostalgia and poor decisions, she said, sipping from her mug. Very human. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, why didn't you die? Excellent question, I said, wiping juice from my chin. I'll get back to you when I figure it out. Calith studied me, not romantically, not even flirtatiously. Like a scientist examining a dangerous compound she secretly wanted to drop into her coffee. There's something odd about you, Captain Mercer. Could be the mild cranial destabilization. No, she said. It's something older, deeper. You don't want to win, but you refuse to lose. Well, that's because I'm petty, I said. Also, I bet myself a bottle of whiskey I'd live through this. She laughed, not the sarcastic, bored laugh of a princess tired of politics. A real one. My stomach did something weird. Might have been romance. Might have been the fruit. Hard to say, she stood. You'll fight again soon. They'll be watching even closer this time. I figured, I said. She paused at the door. Her ears twitched once softly. Try not to die, Mercer. I'll do my best, princess. And then she was gone. Through a shimmering wall, like a ghost. Or a dream. And I once again had absolutely no idea what I'd got myself into. Somewhere between the 3rd day of forced meditation and the 7th hour of being yelled at by a training drone shaped like a giant egg, I decided that Interstellar Gladiator School needed a better syllabus. Or at the very least, fewer devices that zapped you when you tried to cheat at push-ups. Proper warriors, the drone buzzed, do not grunt like faulty refrigeration units when performing physical exertion. I'll grunt however I want, I snapped between wheezes. It's part of my cultural heritage. Query, the drone replied flatly. Is wheezing considered sacred on Terra? Yes, deeply sacred. Passed down by our ancestors who lived in polluted air and shouted at television screens. It paused, then zapped me again. So yeah, training was going great. They hadn't told me who I was fighting next, only that it would be an opponent of elevated esteem and variable anatomy. Which, if you're fluent in noble speak, translates roughly to, we're going to throw something terrifying at you and see how funny your screams sound in surround sound. And yet, despite the looming doom and the suspiciously organic protein paste they kept feeding me, my thoughts kept drifting back to Calith. Princess Longears herself. We hadn't spoken since the breakfast incident. She'd vanished in a ripple of wall shimmer, leaving behind the faint scent of starlight and sarcasm. No secret messages, no coded fruit baskets, just absence, and it irritated me more than I cared to admit. By the fourth night, I'd found a routine. Wake up, survive morning insult-drenched drills, get medically reassembled, try to steal snacks from passing guards, and collapse in a heap of regret and self-pity. Then, somewhere around midnight, I'd lie on my bunk and stare at the shifting constellations projected on the ceiling. It was during one of those late-night stargazing sessions that I heard the chime. Unauthorized override initiated. The lights dimmed. I sat up fast enough to regret it instantly. My back made a sound like a bag of cornflakes. The wall shimmered. I squinted, expecting Calith. I got someone else. He or she stood at least 8 feet tall, draped in what looked like a sentient curtain. Their face was concealed behind a smooth obsidian mask etched with symbols that shifted when I blinked. A translator disc hovered beside their shoulder, humming softly. "Are you the Terran who bleeds improperly?" the disc asked. I cleared my throat. "Well, I like to think I bleed with a certain style, but yes, that's me." The figure didn't move. Or maybe it did, hard to tell under all that curtain. "I am Counselor Drex," the voice said, "Royal Diplomatic Advisor and designated whisperer of forbidden things." That sounds unnecessarily ominous. "Correct." He or it glided into the room, the temperature dropping 3 degrees in its wake. I noticed then that the constellation projection had frozen. One of the stars blinked in and out like a faulty light bulb. "You are causing fractures in the wagering lattice," Drex said. "The odds are unraveling. Some noble houses suspect you of sorcery. One ambassador filed a grievance citing statistical mockery." "I'll add that to my resume." Drex turned its mask toward me. "You were not meant to survive the first match. You were meant to make a point." I leaned back, and now you are making questions asterisk. "Ah, the deadliest of all weapons." The translator paused. "Was that humor?" "Depends on your definition." "Disappointing." Drex waved a gloved hand, and my bunk folded itself into the wall like an obedient dog. I barely had time to stand before the floor changed texture, softening, shifting underfoot like the surface of a dream. A doorway appeared in the far wall, and a corridor extended into darkness. "You are summoned," Drex said, "to the Shrine of Runes and Regret." I frowned. Sounds cozy. It is not. The corridor bent in impossible ways, like a Möbius strip with commitment issues. Every few meters, the floor displayed images. Past arena champions, now mostly dead, and their famous quotes. My favorite was a one-eyed reptilian warrior who proclaimed, "I only screamed once." Below that, in smaller text, it lasted 14 minutes. Eventually, the corridor opened into a chamber that defied the laws of perspective. It was larger on the inside, much larger, like Park a Battleship * larger. Floating islands of metallic stone hovered in concentric circles, lit by suspended globes that pulsed in time with an invisible heartbeat. And standing in the middle of it all, atop a dais carved from what I hoped was not * fossilized competitors, was Calith. Not Princess Calith, just Calith. Her hair was unbound this time, drifting in waves as if caught in a gentle underwater current. Her ears, elegant and expressive, twitched slightly as she turned toward me. "Captain Mercer," she said without smiling, "you're late. I got lost in a hallway that had opinions about architecture." She stepped down from the dais, the hem of her robe whispering secrets to the floor. "This place is where we bind stories," she explained. "Memories etched into quantum stone. The Dominion believes that remembering pain is the best deterrent to failure. Very on brand for an empire built on intergalactic passive aggression." She ignored me. "I brought you here because your next opponent is not just a fighter, he's a statement." "Let me guess," I said. "He's bigger, meaner, and has teeth in places I don't have places." "Close. He's the son of High Lord Vashtal. A duel against you will cleanse his honor and restore the house's reputation. And if I win..." She paused. "Then he dies, and the Dominion will start whispering that the Terran is more than a joke." I rubbed my face. Do they know how close I came to tripping over my own foot in the last match? They assume it was a feint. Well, they're not wrong exactly. Calith finally looked at me, really looked. "Do you understand the weight of this now? You are no longer just a symbol of failure. You're a disruption, and disruptions are either destroyed or adored. Adored sounds nice, I said. Do I get a crown, maybe a sandwich? She didn't laugh, but her lips twitched, a diplomatic micro-expression, progress. I can't pretend. There's something uniquely disconcerting about being fitted for ceremonial armor, while a mechanical arm fondles your armpit in search of vulnerability zones. Please remain still. The armor-fitting AI chirped cheerfully as another set of robotic pincers tightened around my thigh. Tension in your gluteal fibers may result in suboptimal flexion during lateral evasion maneuvers. Suboptimal flexion is my entire brand, I muttered, wincing as a needle pricked my back. Is this thing installing a defense plate or harvesting my spleen? The AI paused. Yes. Excellent. The ceremonial armor was a marvel of Enhari engineering. Sleek, seamless, and laced with reactive alloys that shimmered between crimson and black depending on how much fear you were leaking at the time. It had no seams, no fasteners, and apparently no concern for modesty. I looked like someone had wrapped a blood-stained shadow around me and called it fashion. Through the visor, I could see my reflection in a polished obsidian panel. I looked intimidating, kind of, if you ignored the tiny limping wobble and the definite aura of asterisk man trying to remember how his knees work. This is it, I muttered to myself. Showtime. Correction, the AI said. Showtime is in precisely 76 minutes. Would you like a countdown? No, thank you, I said. I already have anxiety in real time. The staging area beneath the arena was eerily quiet. No fanfare, no thundering crowds. Just the soft hum of grav lifts and the occasional hiss of hydraulics from the arena floor above, shifting into whatever nightmare geometry today's fight demanded. And there, standing across the corridor from me, was Vashtal the Younger. He was enormous, not tall, asterisk wide, built like a blast door with legs. His armor looked like it had been carved out of a moon and then kicked into orbit just for fun. His helmet was shaped like a fang, sleek and narrow, with only a thin red line for a visor. You are the Terran, he said, his voice booming through his speaker like a god narrating a monster truck rally. I am, I replied. Captain Eli Mercer. Bleeds often, cries only during sad dog movies. He tilted his head. I am Vashtal, son of the High Blood, heir to the crimson vaults of Serac and the final blade of the Eastern Star. Cool. I once ate 5 gas station burritos in one sitting. Silence, then to my surprise, Vashtal gave a short, humorless laugh. We are both warriors, and yet I suspect our definitions of bravery differ greatly. That's probably true, I said. Yours involves honor, mine involves duct tape and praying my opponent has allergies. He turned, stepping into the final prep chamber where the arena link pulsed like a heartbeat. I followed. A female voice, grand and honey-laced, echoed through the walls. Combatants prepare for entry. The chamber hissed, gravity shifted. My stomach did a cartwheel, filed for retirement, and abandoned all sense of duty. The arena had transformed. No longer sand and sun. It was now a dark expanse of metal walkways suspended over what looked like a asterisk gravity well asterisk. Glowing blue rifts cracked the floor beneath us, as if the very fabric of space had been wounded. Stars wheeled silently far below. Above, the nobles floated in their luxury pods, cheering and swiping at their wager slates like children at an arcade. Each motion adjusted the odds, the hive mind of bloodlust and boredom. Kalith sat higher than them all, her throne extended from a beam of violet light, crystalline and utterly still. She wore a new set of robes, deep purple edged in silver runes. Her ears twitched with unreadable tension. When she saw me, she gave the tiniest nod. The announcer's voice thundered, "Begin." Vashtal didn't waste time. He charged, and the entire arena trembled with his momentum. I activated my neural interface, the emotional dampener Kalith had given me kicking in with a gentle asterisk ping asterisk. Suddenly I could breathe, think my panic dulled and my body felt lighter, not unbreakable but slightly less breakable. Come then, Terran, Vashtal roared. Let us test the weight of your defiance. I dodged barely. The impact of his hammer cracked the walkway and a segment of it dropped into the swirling abyss. A warning, or an invitation. You sure that thing isn't overcompensating for something? I said, dodging another swing. He growled. Your words are sharp. I will break them from your teeth. I activated the suit's pulse boots, launching myself over a rift. Behind me, Vashtal's momentum nearly carried him into the void. He corrected mid-step, stabilizers flaring, and spun with frightening agility for a guy the size of a cargo shuttle. I needed a plan. Unfortunately, I had asterisk improvisation. Using the walkways, gaps, and unstable footing, I led him in a chase, always one step ahead, always annoying. I shouted movie quotes. I whistled the theme from Space Cowpoke asterisk. I even flashed a grin at the nobles and mimed a yawn. Vashtal was fast, but fury made him reckless. I lured him onto a tilting platform. The magnetic stabilizers flickered just as I anticipated. I dove. He swung. Missed. The platform collapsed asterisk. Vashtal tumbled into the rift, roaring, his stabilizers flaring wildly. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over. Then, boom. He flew back up from the abyss, launched by repulsor tech in his boots, and slammed into the walkway like a meteor. My visor flickered from the shockwave. "I will not be humiliated," he bellowed. "Too late, big guy," I yelled, throwing a stun disc at his face. It fizzled off his armor, because of course it did. "Worth a shot," I mumbled, ducking his counterattack. The fight stretched on. Our world shrank to swings and sparks and footwork. He was relentless. I was annoying. A dance of sorts. The nobles howled. The odds shifted like sand in a storm. And then I saw it. A weakness. His left stabilizer was flickering. Overuse. Damage. He favored that leg during tight turns. I feinted, drew him into another platform, this one rotating slowly over a plasma vent. As he stepped, I struck not with force but with asterisk precision. A jab to the joint, a twist, he faltered. I swept his leg. He fell asterisk hard asterisk onto the heating panel. His armor hissed, sparks flew. I stood over him panting. My arms felt like lead. My ribs had checked out 20 minutes ago, but I was still standing. "Yield," I gasped, "or I make another burrito joke." He stared up at me, chest heaving. Then slowly, Vashtal lifted a hand and pounded it against his own chest in the Enhari symbol of surrender. The arena went asterisk silent, then exploded in fury and disbelief. Above us, Kalith stood. Her expression unreadable, but her ears twitched once, approval. Later in the medbay, as alien goo tried to reassemble my bruised everything, I grinned at the ceiling. 2 for 2, I said aloud. Statistically improbable, morally satisfying. From the shadows, Kalith's voice drifted in. "You're changing the story, Mercer." I turned my head. She was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching me like a cat pretending it doesn't care about the laser pointer. "Good," I said, "because your people's version of the story sucks." Her eyes sparkled, just a little, and then to my absolute shock, she smirked. "Careful, Captain, keep this up and someone might start thinking you're heroic." "Oh no," I groaned. "Let's not start that rumor. I have a very asterisk lazy brand to protect." She laughed just once, but it was real. The thing about fame in the Enhari Dominion is that it's fast, loud, and mostly built on the assumption that your next move will be your last. One day, you're a bleeding earthling gasping your way through an arena like a confused tourist at a chainsaw convention. The next, you're a walking headline. Terran survives deathmatch again. Asterisk odds collapse council erupts. Princess watches, does not blink. Does this mean war or courtship? That last one circulated through noble feeds like wildfire doused in gasoline, and I'm 80% sure it was started by an AI influencer modeled after a seductive badger. I tried to ignore it. Really. But it turns out it's hard to maintain your mystique when holographic tabloids keep projecting your face over vending machines. "I don't look like that," I said to the snack console. "Do I?" The machine, silent and unsympathetic, offered me a protein block shaped like a brick of sadness. I took 2. They upgraded my quarters. Apparently, surviving multiple blood duels without accidentally decapitating yourself earns you a suite with actual pillows. There was even a window now. A real one, not a projection. Outside, I could see the swirling rings of Vihor's upper atmosphere, tinted purple by the magnetostorms rolling through the ionosphere. The city rose like a crown of thorns, its towers twisting into the sky as if daring the stars to blink first. I didn't have long to enjoy the view. A soft chime echoed from the wall, then, without waiting for my permission, because asterisk privacy is apparently optional in royal space, the door shimmered open. Kalith stepped in. This time she wasn't in robes or courtwear. She wore a flight suit, form-fitting, matte gray, laced with neural fibers that shimmered faintly under the lights. It was the first time I'd seen her dressed like someone who might punch a starship rather than command one. Her hair was tied back. Her long ears tilted just slightly forward in what I had learned was her version of curiosity mixed with mischief. "We're going on a trip," she said. I blinked. "I didn't pack." "You won't need socks." "Where we're going, we do need socks." She smiled faintly. Where we're going, your feet will be inside a pressure-sealed pilot cradle, and if we need socks, something has gone terribly wrong. That was how I found myself, 30 minutes later, strapped into the co-pilot seat of a Enhari reconnaissance skimmer. Sleek, fast, and probably illegal in at least 12 solar systems. I feel like this is either a very romantic gesture or an extremely elaborate assassination plot, I said as the skimmer lifted off from the tower platform. Kalith didn't answer. She was busy interfacing with the ship, her fingertips brushing the controls with fluid precision. The vessel responded like it loved her, humming under us, smooth as silk. We broke through the lower atmosphere with barely a ripple, the clouds parting around us like dancers. Then we dropped into stealth glide mode. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To the outskirts," she said, "beyond the city. There's something you need to see." "You know," I said, adjusting the neural link headset, "humans have a tradition. It's called explaining what's going on before dragging someone into unknown territory with a highly advanced death machine." "It sounds inefficient." "It usually is." She smirked again, which I was starting to suspect meant trouble. We landed on a floating shard of rock, tethered to the planet's crust by gravitational anchors. From the air, it looked like a temple. Up close, it was clearly something older, much older. Ruined spires jutted out like broken ribs, and alien script crawled across the stones like ivy made of language. "What is this place?" I asked. Kalith stepped onto the stone pathway, her boots clicking against metal laced with memory. "This was once a listening post," she said. "A place where our ancestors watched the stars and waited for signs of other minds. And one day they stopped waiting." I followed her through the ruins. There were murals half erased by wind and time, stars, ships, creatures with limbs that bent the wrong way. One depicted a Enhari and a human-like figure standing together, their hands outstretched toward a fractured moon. "Hold up," I said. "Is that me?" "It's older than your civilization," she replied. "But yes, it looks like you." "That's unnerving." Kalith touched a panel. It glowed to life beneath her fingers. A sphere rose from the floor, holographic, layered with star charts and blinking data nodes. "This system," she said, pointing to a blinking cluster. "It wasn't always Enhari space. Before we claimed it, it was observed by something else. Something that left before we arrived, but not before planting messages." The sphere zoomed in. An image formed, a symbol etched in orbit around a dead moon. A hand, 5 fingers, human-shaped. "That's not possible," I said. "We didn't have interstellar capability until—" "It shouldn't be possible," she interrupted. "But it's real, and the nobles know. And they're keeping it quiet." She nodded, "Because if your species is older, or if someone wants it to look that way, it threatens everything we've built. The Dominion's sense of superiority, the hierarchy, the wagers." She turned to face me. "That's why you're dangerous. You're not just winning fights, you're changing the narrative." I stared at the hologram. For a moment my brain tried to turn it into a joke, something about ancient astronauts and reality shows. But then I saw the fear in her eyes, not panic, not hysteria, something colder, awareness. "I'm not special," I said. "I'm just a guy who knows how to fall without dying." "Maybe," she said, "but maybe you're also the beginning of a very old story restarting." We flew back in silence. The city was lit up now, nightfall bringing neon veins to the skyline. Somewhere in the distance I could see the arena glowing, preparations for the final match. My name would be announced in the morning. My opponent? Unknown. But now I understood. It didn't matter who I fought. What mattered was that I wasn't supposed to be here at all. Kalith turned to me as the skimmer docked. "They'll throw everything at you this time," she said. "Even the rules will break. And if I win, you won't just win the fight," she said quietly. "You'll win the story. The doors opened, guards waited, Kalith's expression shifted, princess again. But before stepping out, she whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Try not to become a myth, they're harder to kiss." I grinned, "No promises, Your Highness." It began with silence. Not the silence of peace, or the quiet hum of deep space. No, this was the charged, anticipatory hush that only came before a storm or a public execution. The kind of silence that leaned forward with its teeth bared and whispered, "Let's see how he dies this time." I stood once more on the central lift of the great arena, rising through columns of fire mist and charged ions, my boots clanging with a ceremonial weight that felt just a little too heavy to be symbolic. Above, the arena had changed again, its shape vast and circular, but now surrounded by arcane machinery and suspended drones crackling with gravitic pulses. The nobles floated in their viewing orbs like bloated jellyfish in a display tank, radiating smug anticipation and spiteful excitement. They'd saved this one for last, their grand finale, and I was the fool walking willingly into it. The announcer's voice, smoother than a bribe and louder than a courtroom, rang out across the airwaves. Asterisk final bout. One Terran challenger, one ultimate defender, no rules, no resets. The stakes, Dominion pride, ancestral wager, and one princess. There was a ripple of laughter, half serious, half scandalized. I looked up. Kalith sat alone now. No advisors, no guards, just her and that throne of plasma and glass. She looked calm, unreadable, but her fingers tapped twice against her armrest. I'd seen that signal before, back in the training pits when she watched me learn to dodge death with style. It meant stay moving, stay smart. Below me, another platform rose. My opponent arrived. And let me tell you, asterisk, they really outdid themselves this time, asterisk. The ultimate defender wasn't a man or a woman or even a person in the conventional sense. It was a machine. No, not a machine, a war relic. An Aegis unit. Terran design, ironically. Old Earth tech, cobbled together and re-engineered by Enhari scientists with all the emotional range of a toaster and the processing power of a very angry god. 7 feet tall. Bulked with radiant armor. Twin plasma cannons on each shoulder, energy blades humming with enough wattage to shave a continent, and a neural core that probably still ran on the tortured souls of microwaved interns. "Oh good," I said aloud, my voice crackling through the comms. "A walking war crime, just what I was hoping for." Kalith didn't laugh, but I asterisk think she smiled. The match began with light, the kind of blinding, weaponized light that could give the sun an inferiority complex. I dove sideways before the plasma hit, rolled under a beam of raw kinetic force, and activated the neural dampener Kalith had given me only to get a blinking red message. Energy overload detected. Function REDUCED to basic cognitive filtering. Translation, I'm on my own, I muttered, ducking behind a force barrier as the Aegis unit charged. It moved like no machine should, graceful, predictive, relentless. Each step dented the arena floor. Each strike sent shockwaves through my chest. It didn't fight like a creature, it fought like a prophecy. And here I was, the sad, fleshy counter-argument. But I wasn't the same man who'd limped into this arena weeks ago. Back then, I'd been surviving on luck, snark, and the sheer absurdity of still being alive. Now I had purpose. Anger, experience. A full working knowledge of where a Enhari warbot's calibration sensors were located. And maybe, just maybe, a princess watching from above who had bet on me for reasons that went beyond politics. The crowd roared. I blocked it out. I danced. I moved the way only desperate men moved, ducking under blades, redirecting plasma bolts into reflective walls, baiting the machine into overstepping. I used the arena's changing geometry, its shifting platforms, its gravitational waves. I turned the machine's own predictability against it. Still, it nearly killed me 3 times. The 4th time, it cornered me against a wall of ionized stone. The cannons charged. I reached into the inner lining of my suit and pulled out a device Kalith had handed me the night before, small, unassuming, and blinking faintly. "Press this only if you're about to do something stupid," she had said, smiling too calmly. "Define stupid." ID asked, she just said, "You'll know." I pressed it. The device pulsed, and everything stopped. The Aegis unit staggered, just for a second. But it was enough. It wasn't a weapon, not in the traditional sense. It was a disruptor. One that jammed neural pathways and caused temporary cascade failures in synthetic AI cores. The machine's eyes flickered. I climbed its back. I jammed a spike asterisk the broken piece of my own gauntlet asterisk jury-rigged with a fusion node into its override port. The unit screamed, not literally, but its systems did. Fire erupted from its side, one cannon snapping off with a shower of sparks. It staggered, fell, and didn't rise again. The arena fell into a stunned silence. Then chaos, bets exploded, nobles shouted. A few tried to storm the field, only to be tackled by security bots with no patience for melodrama. Somewhere, someone screamed, "That's statistically impossible." I stood over the fallen machine, gasping, bleeding, my armor cracked and sizzling. Then I looked up. At Kalith she stood, and descended. The arena parted for her like a tide before a star. She walked across the smoking battlefield in silence. No guards, no retinue. Just that maddening calm and the faint, deadly smile of someone who had always seen this moment coming. She stopped in front of me. The crowd leaned forward. Calith reached up and pulled off my cracked helmet. "Captain Mercer," she said softly, voice amplified to the entire arena, "you have won. Again." I swallowed, trying to find a joke. Failed. Instead, I said, "I had help." She smiled fully now. "Yes, you did." Then she turned to the crowd. "You wagered everything," she said, voice sharp as starlight. "Your coin, your honor, me, believing the human would fail." She gestured to me. He did not.